What's up, everybody? Welcome to podcast now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about Dragon Age the Veilguard yet again. We actually have two stories to talk about that I just feel in terms of disconnect, okay? We talk about it a lot, I think, in the gaming industry. Sometimes you have this disconnect between fans and then people that are making the game, and that's probably the worst too, right? Like the people that are expected to buy your product and the people that are making your product. When there's a disconnect there, that is a pretty big problem. Now, to be fair, right, one of these stories is more talking about the higher ups at EA, not even necessarily BioWare. Okay, so let's take this first story from Games Radar and we'll talk about the second one. So this comes from BioWare veteran David Gator, and he was talking about just how he felt when he was still there. Now, he's since left, and he did Stray Gods, which is a game that came out a couple of years ago. I actually did not know that this is the same guy who made that studio, but he said, I was very vocal on the Dragon Age team. I was always trying to push it to our traditional mechanics, and that wasn't very welcome in the EA sphere. When he's talking about like Dragon Age, and they said that it was too slow and cumbersome rather than the actiony and slick presentation that the studio was being pushed towards. So he felt his views were often not very welcome despite his long tenure at the studio and work on many of its most famous RPGs. Now, this is where it gets really bad. He says that's partly because he says EA didn't think the traditional RPG audience was one that was worth focusing on. He claims that the overseers refer to these mechanics as being in the cave. The cave, he explains, was where nerds went. The nerds were in the cave. You made an RPG, and the nerds in the cave would always show up for an RPG because it was an RPG. So EA thought it meant that you didn't have to worry about the nerds. You didn't have to try and appeal to them. You had to worry about the people who weren't in the cave, which was the audience we actually wanted, which was much larger. And then he clarified this was the audience EA wanted and not necessarily what they wanted. So let's just take a couple minutes here and let's dissect that story, and we'll go to story number two. I think this is kind of classic, to be honest with you. I don't think this is isolated just towards BioWare and EA. I feel like this happens a lot in the quest to get bigger, you know what I mean? And in terms of like expanding your reach, where you almost take for granted. Actually, no. I think a lot of the executives quite literally do take for granted the people they already have, right? And it's tricky, but it's so, to me, it's like so simple, right? I think to a lot of people, it's like such an obvious thing where, yeah, you make a game, any game, pick a game, and you're going to have a dedicated audience, right? So then when you make the next game, you're hoping that dedicated audience is a given. To be honest with you, you probably do assume it's a given. Honestly, say when I make a video, right, a video of one thing, and then I make a second video on that same thing but something else, it might even be a given that I expect some of those same people to kind of go over. But you don't diminish the quality. You don't radically change what it is, right? You truly don't take it for granted. You hope that they're there. You hope that you're carrying it over. But especially when you're doing these things, right? I mean, like making videos, right? A free kind of process kind of for everybody involved, really, right? When it comes to games, okay, you're making a game, you're charging freaking money for it, right? You're making a sequel to it, or in this case, you make a bunch of Dragon Age games, you're making a new one. You cannot just assume that no matter what you do, like quite literally anything you do, you still assume that you're going to have those base people that move over. You also, quite honestly, have to read the room. And by reading the room, I mean looking at the franchise. It's been 10 years since Dragon Age Inquisition, a game that already divided the fandom. Oh, what happened before that? Dragon Age 2. Now, I quite like that game. I did a retrospective on that game and the first game. I think it's a really good game, but that was also a dividing game. Truly, you should never have taken the audience for granted, right? Because the group you had in Dragon Age 1 has been splintered ever since, because 2 divided them, Inquisition divided them, and then Veilguard divided them. So who do you really have left, to be honest with you, right? But like, you know what I mean? That's just taking a look back and like, do these people even do something like that? Also, I mean, I'm kind of even just avoiding the actual words they use to describe, right? These nerds in a cave, and they just assume that these people are going to stay in their cave or come out of their cave, right, to play their game and then go back in. What a terrible, and I'm going to assume he's telling the truth. I guess he could be lying, but like if EA executives actually thought that, BioWare executives went along with it, how pathetic can you be? Truly, like, that's quite rude, is it not, right? To bring down your audience like to that level, or to think of them at that level. But honest, I will say this, okay? Beyond like just the words insults, I think just the assumption that they're always going to be there is honestly more insulting. I think that's a worse reach than everything else that was said, because that's the dumber part. That's the part that I think a lot of people do it. I truly believe a lot of people do it. But, again, when you're making games and you're charging money, you should never, and okay, and I didn't even say it yet, but I mean, this is like the obvious thing I think like everybody would know. I think you always make the product for like your diehard group first, and then you expand upon it to get the other people in. And I know that can be tricky, right? Because if you make it too much for your diehards, you have no room to kind of expand it. Like, I understand, I get it, but there's gotta be a fine line, and you have to find it. Like, that's what you're getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, a lot of these people, to figure out, right? Is how do we keep the people, the diehards, how do we keep them happy? But then how do we make the game a little bit more, and I say accessible in this way, right? Accessible for a larger audience, like to get a larger group of people to jump in our game. How do we do that? And many people also do that, right? You look at games that have grown, right? Look at a franchise where the first game to the second game, and the second game had more people say they got it versus the first. It's the same thing here. Yes, it's not the first to the second. It's really 1, 2, 3, 4. But you look at how this franchise has actually seemingly died off. I mean, Inquisition actually was a huge success in terms of sales and units, but this game, from all kind of stats, and we don't have too many stats, but from the stats we have, did not sell well literally at all. I wouldn't be shocked if it was the worst selling Dragon Age game, period. Dragon Age 1 and 2 have had time, right, to kind of pad its sales, but that's going backwards, right? You want it to get more people, and honestly, I think Inquisition was kind of that middle ground. Like, yeah, it made people mad. I actually liked it, and I mean, I can only speak for myself, but you also do look at the sales, and you look at the general reception, and it was fine. It wasn't amazing, but again, sales were actually extremely good. I guess I'm saying general reaction to it. It was okay. It was, maybe some people liked it more than 2, worse than 2. Like, it was the worst of the 3. It was the second best of the 3. But like, I think you had it. To be honest with you, I think Inquisition was actually a really good attempt of opening it up for a wider audience, and you quite literally got that, because it did really well sales and just units. And then it also did, it didn't totally appeal to the diehards, but it did it enough, right? This one did not do it, okay? This one factually did not do that. And now that's actually a pretty good segue into story number 2. So this comes from IGN. Dragon Age the Veilguard star absolutely devastated over backlash, says people wanted to see BioWare fail. Quite the headline, but she actually does say that. So this is Dragon Age star Alex, I hope that's how you say it, Alix, Wilton Regan, who was talking about a bunch of different games. She was the female Inquisitor in both Dragon Age Inquisition and then also Dragon Age the Veilguard. So she says, I feel absolutely devastated for BioWare as a studio that they got such mixed reactions to the game. I personally thought it was a really strong game. I thought it was just BioWare being more BioWare. I also think a lot of people kind of wanted to see it fail, or wanted to see BioWare fail, either because they just really are bad people on the internet, or of which there are unfortunately many, as we have discovered. People were attacking the game before it was released. It's ridiculous. How can you judge a game, a book, a film, a TV show before it's actually released? You can't. It's an idiotic stance to take. Again, pretty aggressive there for a game that I do think is a pretty mixed game, to be nice to it. I always said, like, I think some things in this game are actually good. I think overall, like, it's a fine game, and I think I was on the higher end of people online that were talking about Dragon Age the Veilguard as someone who beat it, right? I played the whole thing, I bought the whole thing, and went through it. Okay, like, look, this is an actress that's doing her job, right? She's taking the paycheck and she's doing the work, so I'm not going after her too hard. But what I will say, in terms of mixed reactions, personally thought it was a strong game. Of course, she's gonna, like, would you expect the actress to, like, bash the game? So I don't really take any of that seriously, right? Like, when any voice actor is talking about the product of the game that they made, or anybody's talking about the products of the game, you're not going to have them going at it. Now, I don't think you have to say I'm absolutely devastated that they got such mixed reactions to the game. I think that's actually being kind of nice to it, mixed reactions. So, that whole thing, I guess we can kind of just ignore. The whole wanting to see it fail thing, wanting to see BioWare fail. Here's the thing. Here's how I kind of want to address this part. Are there some people out there that just wish for the worst for everything possible? Yes, I do. While they're loud, they are very loud. I do not think they're the majority. I truly, from the bottom of my heart, do not think that. I think people can be rational. I think people can make their own decisions, all that jazz. We've talked about that time and time again. I think the people that are just always online, that are always literally just looking for things to bash, I do not think they represent as many people as you think they do. I truly, truly do not. I think we all live in a bubble on the internet, and when you take a couple of steps back, you realize it doesn't really, it's not the whole thing. It's just not the entire player base. I genuinely think a game like this did what it did because of what it is, not because of the people that were, say, bashing it before the game came out. Does that affect a couple 100,000 people? Sure. But to go from, say, 10, 15 million of Inquisition to 3, you're affecting more people than just the couple 100,000 that I think really can get influenced by these online creators. I don't think there's that many people getting influenced by these people that do have, say, those evil intentions, right? By the way, there's also not as many people that do that as you think. Yes, there's some. We all kind of know some of their names on social media, right? But I also think some people like her, people, again, people that are so defensive over their products, which they kind of have to be, but still, people like this, I think they look at any negative response as that you're doing it with evil intent, right? So I think someone like me, who I think was fair but critical, I feel like they would lump me in as well. And it's that's ridiculous, right? But I genuinely believe that's how a lot of these people think. And again, this really ties to the first story, right? That kind of being tone deaf, being disconnected. That's not how it works. That's from people that are chronically online. These are people that are just not as plugged in. Or you know what? Actually, they're too plugged in. That maybe I've been saying it wrong this whole time, because this really connects, right? It's so many people, online. You could say, well, hey, I saw so much of this stuff happening online. Again, how much did it really impact it? How many people were really impacted by it? Maybe these people are too plugged in. Maybe they overvalue or put too much into what these people are saying, and that could honestly be part of it. But wanting to see BioWare fail, I don't know. I think again, there's some people the most extremes, right? The extremists, let's call them. Okay, but I do think, again, someone say like me, right? I'm not looking for BioWare to fail. I'm looking for BioWare to turn it around, and I do that for pretty much any game. I'm looking for the game to be good. I'm looking for a redemption story. I'm not looking to tear it down and say, and actually, and some people are more, aggressive than me. Some people want to watch, say, the studio completely burn to the ground to then restart and be better. I try to look for, okay, can we do it on the fly, right? Can we try to reinvent the studio before it burns to the ground and before these games all suck? Because I want good games. I don't want 5 bad games to then get the good game. I'd rather take 1 bad and then they fix themselves and make a good game after. So that's my perspective of it. So yeah, there are some people that just want the worst for BioWare, but I genuinely believe most people, at least at the end of the day, no matter really where a lot of people are at, I think most people want the best for BioWare. It's just kind of how they see it happening, right? Some people want the best for them sooner rather than later. And then the whole attacking the game before it was released, again, I don't want to put too much stock into that one either, because it's again, criticism to a lot of these people does mean attacks, and that's ridiculous, right? So say that first reveal trailer, right, was the wrong tone. I think to 90% of people, that reveal trailer was a bad starting off point for this game. You can tell me if I'm wrong, but I think most people would agree. That would be an attack by their measure, right? And it's no, that's not an attack. That's, this is a bad sign. And the whole, it's ridiculous. How can you judge a game, all that stuff before it's released? That's a tricky one, because there's a lot of, part of that I agree with and part of it I don't. Look, when you're charging money on these things, you have to make a determination before you buy it, right? And it's I do agree, can you ever fully know about these things unless you actually experience them? Say, pick a game, pick a random game even coming out, say Death Stranding 2. can you have opinions on it right now before it comes out? I think the answer is yes. I also think the answer is you kind of have to, because you have to decide if you're going to buy it or not, right? They're charging money. These are not free products. The Veilguard is not free. You had to buy it. So you have to have an opinion on it before you choose to get it or not get it. If you are going in literally with a blank mind, I also don't think that's the majority of people. I think a lot of people do make some sort of like opinion in their head about something before they get it, and then it's up to the game to prove them right or wrong, right? And so yeah, there's parts of it where it's like, yeah, you do have to play it to fully get it, the intricacies, right? Like that's why a review. Can you review a game if you don't actually play it? I think the answer is no, right? You have to actually experience it so you know what it feels like, you know the mechanics, all that like deep dive stuff. But you do have to have an opinion before you get the game. Otherwise, what are you doing, right? So I mean, again, in the way she's coming at it, I feel like, again, as well, people are attacking it before it's released. People are having opinions on it before it's released. I don't think that means necessarily that they're attacking it. So that's just me. That's how I see it. I could be wrong. You let me know in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon's turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.